have joined us. I'm Rawlson King, Councillor for Rideau Rockcliffe, and I'd like to welcome you to this virtual public consultation meeting concerning 400 Coventry Road, which we know is at the southwest corner of Coventry and Belfast Road. This is a session to allow community members to ask questions around the planning process, as well as to the applicant as to what they are proposing. We just want you to know that we are recording this session. So if you do not want to appear on camera, just keep your video off. But obviously, we ask you when we have questions to unmute yourselves when you've raised your hand to ask questions at the end of the session. We will be using the tools. So if you can use the Zoom tools to ensure that you select reactions and raise your hand if you have any questions at the end of the presentation, that would be much appreciated. As we know, the site that we are looking at currently houses the low-rise Enbridge warehouse and office building with a large parking lot at its rear. Through the submitted applications and forthcoming site plan control application, the applicant, which I believe has changed its name to 400 Coventry, will look to redevelop the site into a high-density mixed-use neighborhood located within, as we know, a 700-meter radius and about an 850-meter walking distance from Tremblay O train station, with an area designated as the Tremblay transit-oriented development area. The proposed development will consist of 7 total residential high-rises as proposed, with ground floor commercial along Coventry Road, and a new 2,000 plus square meter public park, and a new public road to align the site with the secondary and transit-oriented development plans for the site. So it's a pleasure to be able to provide the community an opportunity to hear from the applicant. And we'll be proceeding with a presentation from 410, the applicant first, and then we will have a quick overview of the planning process from the city planner, and then we will proceed to questions from the floor or from the attendees. So at this point, I'd like everybody, if they're willing, from the development team to introduce themselves.
Thank you, Councillor King. My name is Harith Khan. I'm a partner of Photon Consultants. I'm going to be here starting the presentation for 400 Coventry Road. And along with me, I have Brian Casagrande on behalf of Photon as well. He's a partner of Photon. And I guess we'll just do a round table. I'll hand it off to Samuel to introduce yourself, and Antoine, who's going to be joining us later.
Hey everybody, my name is Samuel Pouliot. I'm an architect at Neuf Architect. Unfortunately, Antoine will join us a little bit later. He was in Toronto today and he has a little problem with his site, but he will definitely join you a little bit later. Antoine Cousineau is the partner at Neuf Architect.
Thank you, Samuel. Simone, if I could ask you to introduce yourself. Oh, you're on mute.
Hi, everyone. My name is Simon Etier from Groupe Radev. I'm the real estate developer based in Montreal for this site. We own this site since June. So we intend to redevelop the site, obviously, with Photon and everyone on this call.
Thank you, Simone. And also we have CGA Transportation, if you can introduce yourself.
Andrew Hart at CGH Transportation, doing the traffic and transportation work. And I also have John Kingsley with me tonight.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And just quickly before we go to the presentation, I'll also ask city staff from the planning department to introduce themselves as well.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jean-Charles Renaud. You can call me call me JC if you want. That's fine. I am a development review planner with the Central Group, and also with me today I have Andrew McCray, the manager for the Central Development Review Group.
Thanks, JC, and evening, everyone.
Thank you so much. And now I will pass it back to Harris for the presentation.
Thank you, Councillor. I have a brief presentation prepared that I'll share with you guys to give you an overview of the project. Should give me a second. Just pull it up. All right. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out this evening to join us for this presentation and giving us an opportunity to discuss this exciting project with you. Although the applications for this project have recently been submitted, we are still at the very beginning of the process, and this is the first meeting of many opportunities to come to obtain the community's feedback. The proposal we're here to discuss today involves a redevelopment of the former Enbridge gas site at 400 Coventry Road, as Councillor King had mentioned already. The development will be consistent according to transit-oriented development. It'll be a mixed-use development intended as intended by its the applicable policies. To achieve this, an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications are required and have been submitted. A site plan control application will be submitted shortly. As you may be familiar, the property is situated at the intersection of Coventry and Belfast Road, within 600 meters from Tremblay Light Rail Station by way of either Belfast or Max Keeping Bridge. The site itself is a 20,000 square meter parcel just to the east of Best Buy and Canadian Tire, and further a little bit west of the St. Laurent Mall. As you already know, the immediate area around the property is predominantly commercial and industrial in nature and is largely void of mature vegetation. The site benefits from its proximity to established neighborhoods of Overbrook and East Industrial and Riverview, which are well serviced by shopping and amenities such as the St. Laurent Mall and the Train Yards Shopping Center. The site's context in this broader region aligns it with its designation as a site to achieve transit-oriented development, the Tremblay TOD plans. Speaking about the policy, in the old official plan, the site is designated mixed use center, and within the new official plan, the site is designated as a hub within the inner urban transit with an evolving overlay. We submitted an application under the old official plan, so these policies will remain the most relevant to these applications. The general intention of the policies between both OPs are relatively similar, where the designation applies to sites that are close proximity to rapid transit and anticipate high density mixed use transit supported development that makes transit viable. The notable change, however, in the new official plan is that under the new official plan, heights of up to 40 or more stories are now permitted on parcels that are sufficient in size to achieve adequate build form massing and height transition. The site is also impacted by the Tremblay St. Laurent Sarreville secondary plan, which also applies to the lands and has been carried forward from the old to the new official plan as Inner East Lines 1 and 2 secondary plan. It prescribes, the secondary plans prescribe building heights and densities and refers to the transit-oriented development plans for further detail. The secondary plan and the TOD plans permit heights of up to 20 stories within the northern portion of the lot and 30 stories within the southern portion of the lot. The TOD plans envision high density development. They envision high density development that prioritizes the needs of pedestrians, high quality urban design, and transit ridership on sites within 400 to 800 meters walking distance from rapid transit. The TOD plans also envision a future public park, public or private road connection from Belfast to Lola through the site. The site currently retains its legacy zoning as general mixed use GM6 with a height restriction of 34 on the northern portion and 90 within the southern portion. This zoning is generally misaligned with the policy direction and rezoning is proposed as part of the applications to align the zoning with the secondary plan's objectives. With this, I'll hand it off to Samuel to take us through the development concepts.
Thank you very much, Harris. First of all, I would like to thank you everyone to be with us tonight. And I would like to tell you that what you are seeing tonight is not our final design or final answer. The project is an evaluative design, and we would like to have your input to make it better. So first of all, I will do an overview for the project, and after I will explain to you the concept a little bit more in detail. So on our site, we have 7 towers. The site is divided in 2. So we have the north side close to Coventry and Belfast, and we have the south side. On the north side, we have 3 towers and parkland of around like 200 square meters. The tower on the north side are the lowest, so it's between all the towers are between like 18 and 30 story, but on the north side it's between 18 and 25 story, and the 4 tower on the south side are between 23 and 30 story. All the commercial, all the retail part for the project is located like on Coventry under the tower A2 and A1, and it's making the corner to Belfast Street. The project has approximately 1,690 units, and the commercial area between A2 and A1 is about like 1,700 square meters. In the middle of the street, of course, we have the public road of 18 meters. For the overall project of the the parking is about 1,157 stall. For residential, it's 1,057, and bring us to a ratio of 0.62 by unit. And for the commercial, it's 100 stalls, so it's about like 17 placements by square meters. So if we go on the other page, we jump to page one more. This is like to render that we made that we're going to explain a little bit later in the concept. So if you go on the page 9, there you go. So what are we proposing? First of all, our site is like very close to the product transportation. So it's what we call what we think is a site for suiting for density. So as we explained before, the Tremblay LRT station, it's very close from our side. So and the site is very large. So we can use this site like to redefine a little bit the density that we want on the site. So what we did in our massing concept, so we try to play with the different height of the towers. So the lowest tower are a bit further to the LRT station, and when we are closer to the LRT station, the towers became a little bit higher. So we try to create like this transition between all the buildings, and of course we this density also with this density we can also like have a nice green area in the heart of the city. So for references for that for this part of the project, we were thinking about the Marine Gateway in Vancouver. So it's the type of like a mixed use concept of it, like us connected directly on the transit system, and the Copper Lake project in Toronto. So it's a part of the project that we are like close to the highway, so we can see on this reference that the highest part of the project are close to the highway. If we go to the other page. For this, we bring density to the site, but we try to shape with that a new community. So the density, as I explained before, like allow us to create like this vertical community, but from there we want to make the pedestrian experience. We want to make like a good pedestrian experience for the site. So are we doing that? So every building in the project have a podium or setback to bring the project to the human scale. Around the green space, as you can see on the first image on the left corner, we try to add in the podium like townhouse to help to activate the green space by creating like direct connection for the people living there to the green space. And also on the building, so the building, the white building in the back, we open the ground floor with glass wall to, and there we put like more common space of the building, so we can have like an interrelation between the park and the green space. On the for the retail part on Coventry and Belfast, so what we are trying to do is we're trying to open the commercial facade with the glass element to animate the street and create like occasion to have like maybe terraces, coffee, etc., and to create like a real sense of community. If we go to the last pages, our proposed development as well, we try to create like for this community, we try to have like a gateway and a recognizable landmark for the area. So we want to have like an architectural quality with the podium and the highest tower. So we want to treat the site as every tower is kind of like a brother and sister tower. So we're going to have like two signature towers. So it will be the highest tower close to the Queensway, and the towers making the corner of Belfast and Coventry Road. So these two towers will be more like glass tower with a special like architecture, and the other tower will be more like brother and sisters. So we're going to play with the same materiality, and the same colors, but everyone's going to have like a different vision. So we're gonna feel like the whole site as one identity, but every tower will be different at the same time. So all these towers will open on the green space that we create in the middle of the site. If we go back on page 8, from there we will see we're going to have like a better view of the environment that we want to create in the middle of the site, and the community. It's what that community can be, and as well like what we're going to want to create on Coventry Road.
Thank you, Samuel. Just to kind of summarize, essentially, the idea over here was to align the site with its designation as a transit-oriented development project. This in developing the site, a lot of consideration was placed to creating the sense of a mini village within this area and creating a community that really functions. A lot of the discussions and that went into creating the concept revolved around prioritizing the pedestrian experience and that has been incorporated by providing active entrances along Coventry Road, by providing commercial frontages that are stepped back minimally from the public right of way, and incorporating a large public park that is addressed by the towers around the side through well-defined podiums, and incorporating elements such as glass facades along the main floor to encourage things like passive surveillance and creating a comfortable pedestrian environment. Parking generally on the site has been predominantly moved below grade, especially within the northern block. There's no above grade parking proposed, so that there's no conflicts within the pedestrian and vehicles traveling in the area. With that, I'll hand it back to Councillor King. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the really informative presentation. I'll now hand it over to city planning staff just to give some of the context around the planning considerations around these around this application.
Thank you, Councillor. So I'll try to make this brief and just give you a brief overview of the applicant or the planning process and where we are in the process. So as Horace has said, the applications being submitted are for official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment. The site plan control application has not been submitted yet, but will come at a future date, and that's when we'll really be able to look into the finer details of the proposal. But at this point, we can still look at the conceptual nature of what's coming forward and treat those applications that way. The file was circulated on December 9th of this year, and notices were sent out to local community associations as well as to residents within 120 meters of the site. So the circulation period is still on and will end on January 6th. However, I'm always open to receiving comments well into the development review process. So if you don't make that January 6th deadline, no big deal. I'll never shut you down. But as I always say, the sooner the better in order to get comments in and for me to, provide them back to the applicant. It's just easier to get them earlier on in order to really, affect something. So the next step after the circulation period is going to be over will be for staff to prepare a summary of comments to be provided to the applicant. That document will include comments that we've received from the community and as well as other comments from various disciplines at City Hall, such as planning, engineering, urban design, etc. And if ever the community comments come in after I've sent the initial comments, they'll still make it to the applicant, so we don't need to worry about that. So once the applicant has received our summary of comments, they'll review the comments, revise the proposal, submit their next submission, and then it's going to be kind of a rinse and repeat process until we get to our objective, which is, we're working with the applicant to get to a point where we're comfortable with the proposal. And at that point, we'll be able to move forward with a recommendation to the Planning and Housing Committee, who will then make a recommendation to council for a final decision. So very brief overview in a nutshell, but there you have it.
Thank you very much, JC. Very succinct. And so now we're at the part of the presentation where residents can pose questions. If you have any specific questions about this file, obviously both the applicant team as well as the city planners, relevant city planners are here on the call. So I just ask you to either raise your hands or come back with your video and indicate to us if you have any questions for either city staff or the planners. And I see that there is a question in the meeting chat. What is the timeline of the process until approval? So I guess we can pose that to city staff. I guess the question is around the timeline for this process.
Sure thing. So it really depends on the number of resubmissions that we'll see and the delays with turnaround time from the applicant. But I could, it's realistic to see this perhaps go to planning committee within the maybe Q2 to Q3 of next year. Could be sooner, could be later, but it's hard to say, because of the uncontrolled nature of it, but that's a rough estimate.
Okay.
But sorry, just to be clear, that's just for official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment. In order for the developer to go towards a building permit, they would need to come in for site plan control and go through that application process at that point, just to make that clear.
Excellent, appreciate that. The next question we got in the chat is, what is the split between condo and rental units in these buildings? There's also another just comment on top of that. It would be great to see some affordable units in this neighborhood, or I suppose within this development. But the question is, what is the split between condo and rental units?
I'm gonna answer this question. For it will be 100% rental units for these buildings, and obviously we will do like lots of affordable houses in this neighborhood.
Okay, thank you for that. Just looking to see if there's any other questions, and I think what's the building timeline post permit? I think that would be for the applicant team.
Sorry, do you mean post building permit or?
Yeah, so I guess if everything through the planning process is approved, I suppose the question is, what would be the construction timeline?
That's a good question. It really depends on a number of issues that I don't think I'm equipped to answer at this point. I believe it depends on a number of processes that are outside of our hands as planners.
Okay, understood. I think I see raised hands, and I think MC has her hand raised first.
I don't know if you can hear me.
We can.
Perfect. And I'm sorry if my son barges in. I have 3 specific questions, 2 for the developer. The first one would be, can you be more specific about how many social housing units you are planning? If they're going to be labeled as social housing, because low rental is not specific enough, and just wanted to know the percentage, like how many units. The second question is, could you characterize for us what would be the green element of the building beyond just the trees? Like, are there any specific characteristic, like, I'm not a specialist, but in terms of like the air circulation, I see there's a lot of glass. I'm not sure exactly how that works with like heat islands, but like, I see white roofs, but if you can be a bit more specific about what makes this development potentially like a good green option for the city. And then my final question for the city, in light of the development, this development, which I think is great because that site, there's nothing there, and the development on North River, what is your plan in terms of schools, which are already over capacity, at least half of them from what I know, and other amenities related to like parks and sports facilities? So 3 specific questions, 2 for the developers and 1 for the city. Thank you.
Councillor, would you like me to take a stab at the first 2?
Sure.
Or at least orienting the team to it? I mean, I think relative to the question related to the design and the environmental attributes, I think we can hear from the architect in terms of, what their expectation and their experience is. I think both of the questions, unfortunately, are ones that are going to probably evolve as we get closer to the site plan process. There's a new official plan expectations relative to affordable housing that we're going to have to meet, but your comment is appropriate. Like, not all affordable housing is created equal, if for lack of a better word. So that's going to end up being an evaluative thing for the developer, and I think that I'll defer to Simon, but I expect that's another thing that he's going to have to evaluate when he gets to the stage of site plan and beyond. So there's going to have to be something. The question is how much and how deeply affordable. And I think those are things that may need to be answered later in this process. Simon, do you have anything to add?
No, absolutely, Brian, you're right. Like, it's too quick to answer those questions. Like, we're gonna know further in the development, like in many months. But we want to do a lot, so.
No, I thank you for that answer. And obviously there needs to be some back and forth with the planning department to ascertain what the numbers will be, as well as public input into the needs of the community, and that will also help determine the needs around schools, which we would acknowledge is a challenge in our neighborhood. So what I hope for is, if we see a certain level of intensification start to occur within the Tremblay transit-oriented development area, then we're going to have a continuing conversation with our partners, with the school boards who are responsible for that development. Obviously, that's not under the direct guise of the municipality, but I'm intent, at least on the political level, in terms of having conversations with our board, with our school boards and with the school board trustees about the potential for new school facilities. And in fact, on the political level, I'm planning on having discussions in the new year with our school board trustees and some of the directors of education to discuss just that. So we just want you to know on that political level, you know, obviously at council, we don't have control over education. That's the purview of the boards of education, but we are going to have those discussions with the boards. And I see that Stephen has raised his hand.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good. I'm glad to be here. I note that in attendance are some other people from the Overbrook Community Association, of which I am a member. And I'm here, like everybody, to hear what other members of the public may be saying. I can say right now that the Overbrook Community Association will be making a submission of comments to a JC by that submission date or before it of January 6th. What is to be noted, a lot of our comments do not deal directly with the current applications, which are official plan and zoning bylaw. They tend to be more reacting to the conceptual development plan that has been submitted, which would really be addressed when a site plan application is submitted, which hasn't occurred yet. We still think it would be useful to provide these comments in advance, in particular to Samuel and Simon, so they have a feel as to what we might be seeking or not wanting to see as they work with their consultants here in Ottawa on a ultimate site plan application for this property. I'd like perhaps to start with a comment, again, because Samuel and Simon are coming from Montreal, to let them know a little bit about Overbrook, which is the community that you will be developing in. The boundaries are right here, 417 on the south, the Rideau River on the west, Saint Laurent Boulevard on the east, and Vanier to the north. Interesting, the part of Overbrook where people mainly live right now, north of Coventry, is 2 census tracts, and the most eastern census tract has about 1,620 dwellings. So what's being proposed here at 400 Coventry Road is basically the same amount of dwellings as in that whole eastern half of our community. So this development, which is the first of perhaps several that we will see in this hub area along Coventry Road, it's very much a new neighborhood island in the part of our community. I use that word island because you're kind of disconnected right now from the rest of the community, not having a residential or mixed use development that leads to the rest of Overbrook. And we certainly like to see in this submission and know that as the development is phased, you'll have a big emphasis on that park. That park is number one as kind of to build part of the community, a focus for your development here, be it with the first building to the 7th building, really get some attention to that as kind of a focus on the community here. We have a bit of a concern with the height and the shadows that we're going to see because of the tall buildings to the south. We realize it's a 23-story building, not a 30-story building that's proposed immediately to the south. Again, as the plans are refined, if the shadow on the park at certain times of the day can be minimized, that's all the better. It's kind of good to know the shadows are a bit more in the morning as opposed to in the afternoon or evening when people might be more actively using that parkland. But certainly that is going to be a comment that we do have. We have an additional question, and this might be answered at the site plan stage, or perhaps if there is in fact a subdivision application, because We know a public street is needed here to provide that park access to a public street, whether there's going to be a cul-de-sac temporarily at the west end. And because of the underground parking entry to the south of that new street, it would suggest you might need a offset cul-de-sac to the north, which might eat into a bit of that park area, at least for some time into the future. Again, we'll provide that comment for you. I know other people might have some questions. I'm going to have some Bill 23 questions coming up, but let me just conclude right now to say, again, Samuel and Simon may not have been as aware of the development of the new 2021 official plan of the city, but through its development, where a lot more density was needed in existing built-up areas, there were some decisions made to have perhaps a little bit less intensification occurring within the neighborhoods, existing lower and medium density neighborhoods, and to focus it a bit more back to the main streets, such as Saint Laurent Boulevard, or the large hub areas near rapid transit, such as we find here in Coventry Road. So the fact is, I look at this plan, I see these 4 buildings south of that future east-west road. That's permitted. That's what the secondary plan allows. There's no issues with that. The north half of the site, simply asking for 5 more additional stories on top of the 20 that is permitted in the secondary plan. Personally, I don't have issues with that or problems with that additional height. It's not as if you're developing right bordering existing lower density neighborhoods. If you were a site on the north side of Coventry Road that bordered onto existing development, that's really not the case here. Likewise, there's some relief being sought in the zoning bylaw for certain setbacks. They do not appear to be of a major nature. And again, it's something I think can be lived with and worked with. We kind of do look forward to seeing this as the first of perhaps several redevelopments in this area along Coventry Road, which we see one that will be evolving from perhaps the big box 1-story type development that we see to one that is better. So anyhow, we'll be providing these and other comments in writing to you. So I just leave you with some initial thoughts on all those matters at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen, for those comments. I'll be looking forward, as always, to the comments that are submitted by OCA on the planning application. And I think, in terms of amenities, the parks, we share, the same thinking in terms of the approach. So I thank you for your intervention, and I see that Brian, I believe, wants to respond.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. I wanted to just offer a couple of comments. Firstly, yes, the park, we felt the park was important to be in this center of the site. Obviously, it has to be on a municipal road, which is why the road is equally important. The other nice thing about the park location is that as development is expected to continue westward, that park can just simply grow westward at the same time, as can the road. So I think we're setting a framework here that hopefully, if we get it right, can continue and can lead to a nice, we want to see this as a nice village atmosphere. You're right about the density. It's important. It's important that we do this as well as we can. Relative to your question about the subdivision, I think the expectation is that we might be able to utilize a road opening application, which would naturally subdivide the site. And so we'll work with staff to see if that can work as an approach, because subdivisions a lot more complicated, and we're addressing a lot of it through the rezoning. Your ambition to provide comments prior to site plan is a good one. And it's good because the way Bill 23 and Bill, I think 109 are changing the planning realities is that we're having to, we used to be able to submit site plan and have it run concurrently with the zoning and OP amendments if you needed them. Because the city is pressed more for time frame now, and the site plan is the least of those applications, they're forcing applications, site plan applications, to follow rezonings and official plan amendments. And so the expectation, at least from our end, is that that process is going to be much tighter than it used to be, because a lot of the heavy lifting will have happened in the rezonings. And so, excuse me, the more we can hear from the community and others in the rezoning, the more we can lighten the burden, if you will, on the site plan process. That's all I have. Thank you.
And I see JC has also raised his hand.
Yes, thank you. Just on the topic of the road, we'll likely be able to deal with that within the site plan control process. And Stephen, to your point about the cul-de-sac, it's a discussion we've already initiated with the applicant, and we're still working on the solution, but it's definitely a solution that it's going to be needed. But thank you for that.
And thank you. Just looking to see if there are any other questions from the participants. I don't see any. I do see that there were some comments about the schools, and thank you once again, MC. I will follow up with the school boards within the new year, have discussions with trustees, and seek out discussions with directors of education concerning the community's concerns around the scenarios with schools, especially in the context of this first major development in the Tremblay TOD. And I think that there was a general comment as well that the project as presented looks good. The intensification projects along this corridor must have architectural merit to support turning this neighborhood from a depressed area into a destination neighborhood. As this is a first part of the neighborhood that is being developed, it will really set the tone for the rest of the developments in the corridor. The resident here is saying they would like to see this development inspire and set the standard for the quality of the development that will follow. I see JC has raised his hand.
Yes, thank you again, Councillor. Just to the residents that are wondering about the schools and the amenities, I just wanted to add that through this review process, I'll be seeking out comments from the appropriate policy teams in order to look at the future demands that this proposal will present on the area. So we'll get them involved as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I do know that on large files, you usually do seek comments from all the stakeholders. So we appreciate that. And
including school boards, they are circulated on these applications.
Yes, and I do see that in terms of those circulations when I read the report. So we appreciate all that work that you do. And I see Stephen has raised his hand.
Yes, I just have one more question, perhaps for staff, either JC or Andrew. We would just like to know, in particular at the community benefit charges or equivalents, whether that is applicable in this case, or what's kind of been happening for that, and has Bill 23 impacted that? Again, can you provide some clarity on that matter?
Yeah, hey Stephen, it's Andrew. It's good to see you. Actually, it's been a while since your days in the City Hall office, but great seeing you. It might be one that we have to take back, and the only reason why I say that is the community benefits charge bylaw was appealed. So at a high level, my understanding is that this development would be subject to that charge, but I don't want to respond in a definitive sense because it is currently under appeal. So it's something we're going to have to monitor in relation to the appeal, in relation to how it relates to Bill 23. So high level, like my answer would be yes, it applies, but I ultimately don't know what will apply, if that makes sense. It's something we're going to have to track as a city.
Excellent. Thank you for that input. I think we had a general comment that this looks like a good project. And there was another question. Will there be a similar consultation for the project that is being proposed across the road on Coventry as well with 4 towers? And I might defer to staff on that question. I mean, right now we're dealing with this item because it's an active file that is in active application process. We do have some other open files, and maybe what they're asking is the status of the other adjacent files.
Sure. So the other application that is currently in is for a rezoning at 455 Coventry, right across the street. It is fairly advanced in its process, and this is for rezoning only, no site plan application as of yet. And what they're trying to do is just simply rezone the property to a TD zone. So relatively speaking, a straightforward rezoning. And maybe I'm I shouldn't be saying that, but
Palace Furniture. This is what's trying to be rezoned that he just mentioned.
Oh,
This is 455.
thank you. Anyways, so the application is well advanced and we'll be looking to go to Planning and Housing Committee fairly early in the new year.
Hi, is it my turn? I had a follow-up. The reason I made that comment is because it's great to see all this development in this corridor coming up. However, again, that sort of links with that other question, which is planning in terms of schooling and community center and all that. If these 7 towers plus 4 towers, plus there's a few other proposals on the other side of the highway as well, this is going to bring a lot of new people into the area. And for sure, there's a need for, you know, a comprehensive, coordinated think through of what that means in terms of, you know, schools for kids and whoever's going to live there. So that's I think, partly why I asked that question.
Okay, well, the context is good. And like I said, I'll be talking with school board trustees and with the different school boards about the specific community needs that we see emerging. As JC has said, when these applications go through, stakeholders, including the school boards, are notified. Obviously, there's also a political element to this, not just policy, because there needs to be the resources, there needs to be the call from the community to ask about the creation and implementation of new schools, or reformulating how we use existing facilities. So I want to have that discussion. It is just a new term. We've only taken office again over the last 4 weeks, but it's my intention early in the term to have those discussions with both the elected officials responsible for the school board and also the executive directors who are in charge of delivering all the services at the school board. And MC. And I thought her hand was raised, maybe not. But I know that, and so if you want to unmute and ask your question, you can.
sorry, I was waiting. So it's not going to be about schools, just mentioning to the developers that I'm from Montreal, so all the drama in Griffintown, Villeray, le manque d'écoles, le fait qu'ils veulent même construire des écoles dans des condos, it's a bit unsettling looking at what's happening there, the lack of planning and this. But my main question actually would be for the city, in terms of what's going to happen with the stadium and the impact also in terms of traffic on Lola. Like, is there some thinking of how all of this is going to mesh together? Like, I think there's a visioning exercise for the baseball stadium. I don't know if the developers are aware of that, but if we're thinking of how this development is going to link with that one, and if we do consultation on Coventry, the baseball stadium, if we can mention this development, because I think they're so close together that there needs to be an holistic view of those two projects. And yes, the impact on traffic on Lola, because we shouldn't assume that everybody's going to take Vanier Parkway to go to the supermarket, to go to the Freshco, etc. So 2 specific questions.
Yes, and at least with the baseball stadium, in the last term of council, I moved a direction so that we could have this revisioning exercise. It's a first step, so there isn't specific plans for that lot. But you know, it would make sense for there to be some level of development in that lot that could be mixed use and also deeply affordable. So I had put that into a direction to council, and it moved forward. And so we haven't seen the results of the visioning process yet. That's still underway. But my hope is that if there is any development there, that it would be primarily public. It would be mixed income, mixed use, with deeply affordable units, with green space, those types of elements, potentially with a world-class design competition, as well as all the requisite studies to ensure that any future development could really be accommodated by the neighborhood. You know, that's my hope as part of this process. But it is some thinking that and some work that needs to continue to be undertaken by the city. But it is something part and parcel in terms of the TOD developments that I want to ensure happens hand in hand.
In terms of the specific questions for traffic studies, I can confirm that transportation impact analysis is required in conjunction with these applications. However, I think I remember the applicant team has their transportation consultants on the line, so therefore perhaps they'd be better suited to speak to these the question being asked.
Yeah, thanks, JC. Yeah, Andrew Hart and John, my colleague, we did the study. So I will confirm that we did assign some traffic from the development up onto Lola and assume some of the background development from other developments along Coventry would end up taking Lola as well. Just as a context thing, we are at the high level just for the zoning and the OPA amendment. So this will get further refined once we move to the site plan and the various phases that might entail. But definitely you can take comments back either today or through JC about how we've assigned the traffic and your interpretation of that.
And of course, you know, I would acknowledge, because I'm a realist, that there is going to be impacts to traffic, but obviously the whole idea of the transit-oriented development is for people to really leverage, you know, the proximity to Tremblay Station. And I'm hoping that people who live in that proximity would, you know, have access to at least shopping amenities, as well as transit in order to get around. I know, you know, living in Overbrook, I live a few blocks away, and often I will actually, you know, utilize that Max Keeping Bridge and walk to Tremblay Station as an option. So if some of us are willing to do that in the Overbrook community, you know, north of Coventry, it's my hope that people who are living within the proximity in the TOD would heavily leverage transit, and that's something, you know, that the city will need to encourage future residents to do if this proposal is accepted. Stephen.
Yes, just a few little minor comments. Again, these will be all submitted, and they tend to be more related to site plan applications that will be coming up. And I'm kind of very glad to hear you won't have to go through plan and subdivision. You're going to try and do a natural severance and make it a public road in the middle without going through plan and subdivision. So that's a piece of good news. I suspect Andrew and John are going to come back, and we need left-hand turn lanes to get into the site off of Belfast. It's unfortunate that the city just did those improvements for cyclists and pedestrians right along the frontage of Belfast roads for this property. Going to have to relocate that all likely to accommodate perhaps left-hand turn lanes. Again, we'll see that when we get to more of the site plan stage. Three other little quick comments. I noticed the noise study said some of the outdoor amenity areas are going to be subject to excessive noise. I take it maybe that's up on the sixth floor podiums that you kind of see on some of these buildings. So again, as you work your plans further, let's hope that can be better realized by positioning where that amenity space is, or the designs of those buildings, so those amenity spaces are not subject to as much noise as they do. Another comment was when we look at this little park and we see tree, please have some consultation with the Parks and Rec people. I think they want some active open areas in there, and it just looks like it's a little tree forest, which is nice, but I'm sure they want some open areas to allow for certain recreational activities and not just a passive park where you have trees and you sit down next to a fountain of something of that nature. Last little quick comment, the development to the west, if that site redevelops, and as noted, yes, perhaps it will someday. Brian was mentioning, and that would be great. You could expand the park in that direction, but so often we see chain link fence, stay off our property, kind of like your site's your site, our site's our site. Please really do have some discussions with the neighbors to the west to see at least about getting pedestrian and or cycling connection to allow access over to their sites. If not, people are going to cut the fence, just going to cut the fence, because people want that access. They don't want to go out to Coventry Road if they want to walk over to the businesses or to transit further to the west there. So have some discussions with them. That's it, just some more little comments.
Thank you so much. And I see Nora has raised her hand.
Thank you, Rawlson, Councillor Rawlson. My comment is a little bit a continuation of what Stephen was just saying about the connection. So yes, the site is close to Tremblay, but when you look at it, there is not an easy way to get to Tremblay from that site. And the corridor or the tunnel that exists from Overbrook to get to that to Tremblay station is not, for women who use them, is not a safe place. There's not a lot of light. And we have mentioned that many times to the city in many meetings. So I think it's a good idea. It's a nice plan. Think about access to transit, and maybe that's also done in coordination with the city. Safe access for women, light, direct access. People will go through the easy way, so they will cross straight to the place. So not a way going around, and we realized that in Saint Laurent connection with other projects. And I think the other thing that MC has a comment in the chat that I think is important also to mention. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Any other questions? Seeing none, I think we're at the bottom of the hour. So I'd really like to thank both the application team for coming out tonight and providing an in-depth presentation, as well as city staff for providing as well context as to the planning process and the way that it's evolving based on these files. Obviously, this is a continuing process. As JC, I believe, pointed out, comments on this file are being accepted until January 10th. And we're looking forward to comments from both the community association and multiple residents in written form. I know that you'll be able to correspond directly with Jean-Charles to provide those comments. And of course, you can always contact our office, my office, where we're always happy to have a continuing conversation on these files. And I know that some of you probably are having those conversations with Peter Petrie in my office, who is responsible for the planning application files in the ward. So once again, I'd like to thank everyone, residents, the planners, city staff, for taking some time out of your busy schedules to join us this evening. And I'd like to wish everybody a great night, as well as a wonderful holiday season. Please enjoy the holiday season and stay safe. That's the most important thing. So thank you very much, everybody, and looking forward to seeing everyone soon.
Thank you, Councillor King.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Merci
Happy
beaucoup.
holidays. Have a
Councillor.
great weekend.
Thank you.
Good evening. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.